Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bagby?
Present.
Vice Mayor Paula?
Here.
Councilmember Brigham?
Here.
Councilmember Russell?
Here.
Mayor Walter?
Here.
Thank you.
Council members, any conflict of interest to declare? Agenda review, any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Public comment is the next item, and I'm going to invite anyone who wants to address the city council on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Please come up to the podium. There's a pad on the stage here. If you can just sign your name or print it and tell us what you have to say tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staffers, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening, and thank you for all the work that you do. As a Cloverdale homeowner and resident for 32 years, I'm still learning the nuances of the local customs.
Can you state your name, please, for the record?
Richard Green, 202 Triplet Drive in Cloverdale.
Thank you.
As a Cloverdale homeowner and resident for 32 years, I am still learning the nuances of the local customs. I was recently brought up short in my otherwise bucolic Cloverdale experience by the receipt of a parking ticket written at 11:30 at night by an officer who spied a for sale sign on my automobile, parked on the street outside my home, where I have always parked. Any reader of the police log in the Reveille is familiar with how a citizen complaints are often dealt with by an officer contacting an alleged violator of some minor infraction and reining in the behavior with a simple conversation. Had I been aware of the ordinance, I would have removed the sign. Case closed. Had I instead, an otherwise victimless violation cost me $43. Frankly, the nocturnal descent of the long arm of the law seems like it was a predatory act, and it just sticks in my craw. I would ask you to please consider offering some guidance to officers about Cloverdale-style jurisprudence. As to the ordinance itself, number 10.24.120, displaying vehicles for sale, which states, no operator of any vehicle shall park the vehicle upon any street in the city for the principal purpose of advertising or displaying it for sale, comma, unless authorized by resolution of the council. It really needs some attention. As I understand it, I can't display a sign. I must first come to the council and ask for a resolution to post one. Only after I get the item on the agenda can I council debate and decide pro or con. I don't think that that is a reasonable use of your time or mine, and it is contrary to the time-honored custom of good old American horse trading. Is a citizen petition needed to rescind or revise this strangely worded roadblock to commerce? Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And if you have a copy of that, if you can give that to Linda, I would appreciate it. And maybe we could put this item on the Police Finance Subcommittee meeting. Paul?
In terms of vehicle parking, we'd be happy to. I think I think what you're seeing is this is a result of increased code enforcement efforts.
Yes.
And vehicle parking on the streets has been something that we've received comments about. So I understand the dissatisfaction that Mr. Green is experiencing, but it is part of an overall project to be take up some of these quality of life issues.
I totally understand. I'm just questioning whether it was parked there for the primary purpose of selling it as opposed to just parking it there. But we could, I know it's not agendized.
The other thing I want the public and to understand is that parking tickets, the city does not generate revenue from writing parking tickets. This is not an effort to generate revenue. A lot of people see parking tickets as an effort, a revenue generating effort, but for the most part, the lion's share of parking ticket revenue either goes to the county of Sonoma or the state of California.
Okay. Councilman Powell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really support your request to put it on the police subcommittee agenda. I really think it's not necessarily the ticket, it's the process that was used and whether warnings would be better served, at least initially, and those kinds of conversations, I think. So people are informed, and if they fail to comply, then it escalates. But I think that conversation
Yeah.
should be had.
Yeah. Just a little business card on the windshield with "give me a call" type thing, I know, so. Okay, so public comment is still open. Anyone else wishing to address the city council on items that are not on tonight's agenda? Seeing no one rise, we're going to go ahead and close the public comment, and we're going to bring it back to proclamations and presentations. This evening, we have a presentation by the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. And Paul, is this you to introduce?
Right. We have Suzanne Smith, who's the Executive Director of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and the Regional Climate Protection Authority, here to talk about SHIFT and give a presentation to us on the efforts of those two agencies to encourage electrical vehicle use.
Great. Can I do the screen?
He's coming down right now.
There it is. All right. Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and share with you a new and exciting low-carbon transportation action plan that we have crafted. It's in its draft form, so we're out seeking public comment and taking input on how best to address what we refer to as mode shift, getting people out of a single occupant vehicle, as well as fuel shift, getting people out of internal combustion engines and into electric vehicles. So the SHIFT Sonoma County plan is really meant to provide the tools for action. It kind of nests inside some of our other planning documents, like our comprehensive transportation plan, our climate action plan, which all sort of are related to your general plans or some of your area plans. So when we started this process, we really were looking at 4 primary goals around transportation: reducing greenhouse gas emissions, reducing vehicle miles traveled, promoting safety and health, and promoting economic vitality. These are similar goals to what we have in our comprehensive transportation plan. The value, though, is not just with those goals, but also the co-benefits that go along with shifting out of internal combustion engines vehicles. You see cost benefits for the individuals, you see cleaner air, health benefits, reduced congestion, as well as the ability to sort of wean ourselves from fossil fuels and therefore having a greater degree of energy independence. And the nexus there between greenhouse gas emissions and transportation is, I think you probably all are aware, but it's very significant. Transportation making up about 53% of our emissions. So tackling that component is really critical to achieving goals related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, congestion accounts for over 44,000 hours of time lost in traffic each year. So it's a quality of life issue. It's people being able to get to spend reliable time with their family, not getting stuck in traffic. Inconsistently is bad enough, but it's even worse when you don't know how bad it's going to be. And then also the cost factor related to the average household spending about $1,100 a month on transportation, which equates to about 22% of a household budget. So this is, transportation is a significant part of folks' everyday financial decisions. And so the SHIFT program is really trying to target ways to have positive impacts in those areas. So the strategies that we explored in the plan, 3 of them are related to changing the manner in which people travel and incentivizing those approaches. And then the 4th is related to shifting the type of fuel they use. So we looked at bike share, car share, and something called transportation demand management, which I'll explain a little bit more later. And then also how you convert from your regular internal combustion vehicle to incentivizing and increasing the number of electric vehicles in the county. So first on the mode shift side, Fundamentally, we are seeking to get folks to drive 10% less. That's one of our goals. The other is to have a shift from driving to walking and biking of about 4%, increasing transit ridership by 4 times, that's a big number, and then reducing the cost, the average household travel cost, to below the cost from 2010. Currently, bike and walk trips are about 8% of mode share. Transit is less than 1%, and 74% of commute trips are made in single occupant vehicles. So it's a daunting challenge to address transportation, but that's our charge. So bike share, for those of you who may not be as familiar, this is the idea of providing an opportunity for people to cycle for short trips within a downtown area, primarily short trips on a subscription basis, providing access to bicycles. We have put together a bike share plan countywide, the first phase of which we have now applied for capital funding from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We are awaiting word as to whether or not we will receive those grant funds. But the initial phase that we're seeking funds for will be linked to the smart rail stations. Having said that, Healdsburg is also actually ahead of us and is under contract with a company to initiate bike share in Healdsburg on a pilot basis for, I think it's a 12-month contract. I believe starting in September was the last I heard. So we'll learn from them as hopefully we get the grant. We'll learn from what Healdsburg's doing. We will have to do an RFP and go through a process in order to find a vendor and nail down the locations. But we are doing this in partnership with Marin County, so there's consistency across the 2 North Bay counties in terms of using the same vendor, having access at smart stations, but also at key locations in other parts of the jurisdictions where the initial service will be provided. The second program I mentioned was car share. This is something you probably see periodically on 101 or in town where someone has brought a zip car up there from the Bay Area. Zipcar has not had much of a presence in Sonoma County. There's, I believe, 1 vehicle at Sonoma State. So we've been talking with various providers of car share for the last 5 years. But it's been a struggle to get their business model to move north out of the more urban areas. But the idea behind car share is to provide a support for transit and multimodal lifestyle, to aspire to reduce the rate of private vehicle ownership and to reduce transportation costs for a household. So how that works is, let's say I live in Petaluma and commute regularly to Santa Rosa. I can take the bus, I can, as of Friday, take the train, but sometimes I have to take a trip. I have a meeting, I have something else, and I don't have a vehicle as part of my work. So this would allow you to continue to commute, but have access to a vehicle. You reserve it and pay a small amount for hourly use, and you have access to a vehicle. So we were successful in securing a grant from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission to roll out a slightly larger pilot project of 2 vehicles in the city of Santa Rosa. It will be kicked off on Friday when the smart rail service is kicked off. And one will be located in Railroad Square. The other vehicle will be located on the other side of downtown Santa Rosa near the Russian River Brewing Company. This is in partnership with the city of Santa Rosa, who is providing the parking space itself. And Zipcar will be the provider. So that brings us to transportation demand management. And this is kind of a broad term that covers, as the chart shows, all of these different things and making them sort of known to people and integrating them so that people understand how they can potentially change up their commute from driving in a single occupant vehicle. The benefits of having a transportation demand management program is it's an attractive tool for employee recruitment and retention. It provides education about options and encourages people to drive or to be mobile in a way that is different from the single occupant vehicle. So as part of the SHIFT plan, we have distinct implementation plans related to these three elements that I've just mentioned. So let's move now to the fuel shift goals and the fuel shift element of the plan. The focus here is getting people into electric vehicles. Overall, we aspire to reduce countywide petroleum use by 50% by 2030. That includes increasing electric vehicle registration in the county to 100,000 by 2030. Right now, the number of vehicles registered in Sonoma County is about 1-to-1 for population, so we're well over 450,000 vehicles. So that would equate to 25 to 30 or so percent of vehicles being electric. We also are very focused on expanding the electric vehicle charging network so that there is security and certainty about the ability to charge during the day, which has become more of a focus. You know, a lot of people think, oh, I go plug it in at night, that's the most efficient way to do it, that saves the most energy. Given the heightened availability of solar, that is not the case. We are trying to figure out the best ways to get people convinced or able to plug in during the day. The afternoon hours when solar is at its peak, at this point, people are actually, we're paying people to use energy because you've got to get it off the grid. So daytime charging is really a focus of networking these charging stations and allowing people to plug in while at work. So how are we promoting EVs? There is a key program happening right now, Drive Evergreen, and a companion sort of measure that's been going on for a longer period of time, 321 Go Green, which is put on by the Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District. There is a handout that I provided, and there are extra copies up here as well, that gets into the details of the financial benefits that are being offered through Drive Evergreen, but it includes negotiated agreement among certain car dealers and manufacturers for reduced discount of the vehicles. Added to that are some incentives provided by Sonoma Clean Power, and that is in addition to the federal rebate that is available and the state rebate. So it's a good time between now and the end of October to buy an electric vehicle or lease an electric vehicle. In addition to that, for home charging, Sonoma Clean Power is providing an opportunity for steep discount, if not free, EV charging. It often requires some work by the homeowner to have it installed by an electrician, but it's typically not overly expensive, and the infrastructure itself is steeply discounted, if not free, depending on the charging infrastructure itself. So it's really an exciting opportunity right now for electric vehicles. And I would mention, if people are interested in driving EVs and seeing what is available, on September 9th in Santa Rosa, there is a Drive Electric Day in downtown Santa Rosa where it's like one-stop shopping. You can see all of the vehicles that are available without having to go dealer to dealer to dealer. And you have an opportunity to drive and have questions answered about the vehicles that are available, both in the program that Sonoma Clean Power is offering and externally to that as well. So I want to close with the kind of top 10 low carbon transportation actions for Cloverdale. I won't read them all to you, but it's in your packet. But there are a couple that I really want to highlight. You know, I've mentioned some of these pilot programs, and they tend to be a little bit more south of the county, and I recognize that we're not talking about car share in Cloverdale yet, but we got to start somewhere. But there are still some very specific sort of concrete things that we hope Cloverdale and other jurisdictions who may not be part of the pilot projects I mentioned can explore. For example, adopting an EV-ready community resolution. We are in the process of putting together what that might look like, what an ordinance or a resolution might look like, where you kind of stake out what the council's priorities are related to electric vehicles. Working with developers on transportation demand management, car share. Petaluma mentioned that they were talking about conditioning a new development to include a car share pod. So creative approaches to work with new development around what's the future of transportation, EV charging, how you deal with parking policy, where autonomous vehicles might fit in, how you manage or how you plan for parking in your town. Those are all things that I think, they take some forethought and long-range planning, but as we work with your staff on options and ideas, I think those are a couple of things that really stand out on how both the mode shift and the fuel shift can be applied to Cloverdale. So with that, I would, there's your SCTA team and their 4 EVs, 2 of which were purchased through Sonoma Clean Power's program last go around. And we would welcome, so the document, the plan is available on our website with the implementation plans that go along with sort of the roll-up document. We would welcome feedback and comments. We aspire to have the final version presented to our board the second week in October. So end of September, we'll be closing off the public comment period. So with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you. Council members, staff, any questions? Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments, not necessarily questions, but, the increased transit ridership 4 times in Cloverdale is going to require a new philosophy on what transportation is all about, because the bus service here clearly is lacking to get people to Santa Rosa. It takes hours at times, and it's really difficult if we don't get employer buy-in for flexibility to do car share, because if people start at 8 o'clock and another one starts at 9, it's really hard to get them to correspond that ride. And somehow we need to get, I think, employers and schools somewhat into the conversation to make it really a meaningful program. So hours can be fluxed, and we can maybe coordinate where it makes it advantageous for them to ride together, where one, doesn't have to be there 2 hours early and wait 2 hours later, so that's like, that's just too much, I'm going to take my own car. Mm-hmm. Somehow we need to kind of get more cooperation throughout the whole process. We have very limited county services here, and a large senior citizen population, and to get to hospitals and doctor's appointments and things like that, they end up driving. And there's just not the transportation other than your own car. And I think that because of where we're physically located, 30-plus miles north of Santa Rosa, so we need to really think how we can get better transportation up in this area and get the flexibility needed where car share program will really work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Carol?
Yeah, as Vice Chair of SCTA, RCPA, I have to tell you, I'm very proud of this program, and I understand the problems that you're talking about. We talk about them all the time there. Sometimes a little bit too much, I think, in terms of looking at the negative and not always at the positive. But this is one of those things that you have to operate on, to use a car analogy, a whole lot of cylinders. It's not a one-cylinder idea. You've got to pump it in all kinds of directions. And one of them is informing people and talking to everybody so we're all on the same page a little bit. I like the idea of working with schools. I like the idea of working with employers. We all know that we suffer in small cities from the fact that we're small. We don't have the population that often you need in order to get the kind of transportation money. As I said to folks recently, rather bluntly, about SMART, we want to get SMART to Windsor, which looks good, but then we have to get it to Hillsburg and to Cloverdale to really put a dent in a lot of our travel. I would have loved it today. I traveled back and forth twice to Santa Rosa, unexpectedly. And I could, actually, if there had been a train, I could have arranged to go at a different time. You know what I mean? It made me nuts. Anyway, I've said, I want to get people here using SMART. The more all of us put our, I'm going to use a nice expression most people won't know. We put our tuchuses and our tushies in there, we'll be fine. Get our tushy in the seat, we'll be all right. That's what we have to do. We have to support our public transportation. And sometimes it's hard, you're right, because I have friends, particularly a good friend who's a vet, and I watch him spend an entire day trying to get down to one single appointment every month. And it's, you know, if he wasn't a really patient person or he was in worse shape than he is physically, it would be very, very difficult for him to do that. But he does it. We are working with our senior center. I know Rich Coward has done a great job up there, and the director and everyone, to try to get rides for people so that it's a little bit more coordinated too. And I've been pleased with some of the work that our staff has done with Brian Albee in getting certain arrangements with our internal bus system. I think it works much better right now, much more conveniently, and I hear good things about it. So it's pumping on all these cylinders, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And the more we do, the less problems we have, you know, the fewer problems we have. But I must tell you, I have watched this develop, and what I love about it as a board member more than anything else is we get to really talk honestly and bluntly about these issues without politics, without anything other than what the focus is, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions and doing it in a way that benefits as many people as we possibly can. I love the idea of seeing people pay less money every month and get really more enjoyable transportation. Mm-hmm. So starting Friday with SMART, we're on the road. But we got to keep pumping. We have to make sure that we're there, and we've got to bother every single person we possibly can to let them know that we've got the population. We travel further. We spew out more greenhouse gases than somebody who has a bus every 20 minutes. I mean, that's just the way it works. But we don't always communicate that. One of the things I'd love to do in the future, and I don't know if this is possible, I'd love to get a general idea of exactly how many miles we travel in Cloverdale back and forth in the average day or the average week to get to work, to shop, to get to school, to worship, do all the things people do. I bet we'd be number one in the county, or very close. We'd be right up there, maybe at least in the top 3, right?
Yep.
I don't think they give prizes for spewing greenhouse gas emissions, but if we did, we'd at least come in, what, number 3, number 2? And once we are able to communicate that, and we're able to communicate it more and more, I think we're going to get more and more attention.
Thank you, Carol. Mary Ann?
Yeah, maybe a good place to start, because I'm used to this now. I'm watching my great nieces and nephews that are going to the JC, and one just graduated, and I tried to help them organize a kind of a ride share for years.
I know you did.
Because I didn't want them to keep borrowing my car, mostly. But
Okay.
we were sort of successful, but then every semester it changed, and you know, some of the kids would be sitting there for like 4 hours, 5 hours. But that might be a place to at least begin. And that would be something maybe we could put our hands around, because there's a lot of kids from this town that drive down to the JC every single day. Be beginning.
Yeah, definitely. Melanie, anything?
Yeah, just a comment. This is the second time I've gotten to hear this presentation, so thank you, Suzanne. But I don't have a lot of recommendations. I think it's a good start, and I see this presentation bringing to our attention what we have a responsibility to do, which is, you know, every greenhouse gas emission potential reducer is not appropriate, is appropriate to varying degrees to every community, and we're in a unique situation being 30 miles north. So I think we have to pick the things that are going to get us the best results. And I think that one of the things that we can do is really look at our ordinances and our parking regulations and working with developers initially to start getting EVs as part of the developments. And, and Times Square is probably the perfect example of that. We need, especially with its proximity to the depot, it would be great if that were a charging hub or a car share hub, if we could work that into the plan somehow, because we I think we've just subdivided it, but that's as far as we've really gotten. So I think that it's an opportunity now to start, taking a real serious look at where we are on encouraging EV parking and car sharing and bake it into the projects that we have coming up. Because this is our opportunity to get started on it and, of course, work with the agency. I know Carol
Yeah,
will help us.
well, it's like solar.
It's like solar. It
It's
just
like working
has
with
to-
solar, exactly.
yeah,
There are
yeah.
things we can really do. I mean,
Right.
well, I was delighted, for example, when I saw one of the businesses that moved in recently, Dollar General, had a charging station, and wherever you go,
Yeah.
businesses, developments, we were just talking about it before the meeting tonight, are putting these in because not to do it sends the wrong message if you're a business person
Yeah.
or developer. You're
Our
saying,
city- our
I'm
city with the
completely
bets.
unaware of any of this and unaware of what you want, customer, as part of your own lifestyle and as part of your work and part of your family life, your household life. So yeah, the more we can do it, the better. And you know how we always talk about parking? This is
And-
part of what we've been talking
and-
about over the years. Yeah, with our parking plan, you're absolutely right.
And later tonight, we're going to be talking about the what's the new name of it? It's not a mother-in-law unit. We have a new politically correct name for it.
Accessory dwelling.
Accessory
Accessory
dwelling unit.
dwellings, yeah,
And
that's
that's
the other one.
that's a perfect opportunity
right
too. I mean, we'd already talked about, if they provide off-street parking, if they provide bicycle parking, then this is, another incentive that we could provide whenever someone is going to put in an accessory dwelling unit. They get a little bit of,
Yeah.
a little bit off of their fees for putting in EV facilities. So I think that we need to look at all the ways that we can encourage it, because again, we're kind of, that we have to just do what's available to us. We don't have a major employer, we don't have, in Cloverdale, but this is the kind of thing that we can do, and so I think that we need to start baking that into our upcoming projects.
Exactly.
Good.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Well,
might.
I think before I open it up to the public, I just wanted to say, I think Carol hit the nail on the head, that we probably, in Cloverdale, are probably the biggest polluters in Sonoma County because of that 30/60-mile round trip run that we have to make down to Santa Rosa. Everybody else is so conveniently close to Santa Rosa, and here we are like a little island. So, yes, Carol?
I just wanted to point out, I'm sorry that I didn't say this before. I would like the council to consider, and our city manager to consider, when it's ready, taking a look at the EV-ready community resolution as promptly as we can. I think that would be a positive step in terms of showing our approach to this as a sincere one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then just again, too, to echo that, we need that smart train up here, too, to help us. So, okay, if there's no more questions from council, I'd like to open it up to the public. Anything from the public? Anybody would like to come up and say anything about this item? Okay, seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close it. Suzanne, thank you for coming to Cloverdale this evening. And
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, next on the agenda is the consent calendar. All items considered under the consent calendar will be approved by one action. Any council member or member of the public wishing to pull an item and discuss it separately may do so. Is there anyone that would like to pull an item off of the consent calendar? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and move for approval of the
Mayor, I'd
consent
like to move
calendar.
the approval of the consent calendar, item 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I'll second.
Okay, could we have a roll call, please, Linda?
Councilmember Bagby,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Paula,
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham,
Aye.
Councilmember Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Woltert.
Aye.
Thank you.
Communications, any communications?
None.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing, continued from the August 8th meeting, introduction of the first reading of the ordinance amending the Cloverdale Municipal Code, Section 18.03.150, a design review, Municipal Code 18.09.180, second residential dwelling units. And David?
Good evening, Mayor, honorable council members. I'm David Kelly, your Assistant City Manager and Community Development Director. As Mayor Walter indicated, this is a continuation of the public hearing from August 8th. I'll do just a quick, brief recap and then just really talk and highlight the changes that were brought back at the council's direction at your previous meeting. I just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge that Rafael Miranda, our associate planner, is here, and he may be invited to speak. And also did want to note that I think it was Councilmember Russell's direction to bring back a brochure highlighting accessory dwelling units. Want to acknowledge Rafael's effort in putting that brochure together. Obviously, that assumes that the council does decide to formally adopt an ADU ordinance, but we did want to put something together that identifies the intent of the ordinance that's before you this evening. I think it's a very nice brochure. It's intended to provide information to folks that come visit City Hall. It's also something we can put on our website and just highlight the key aspects of building an accessory dwelling unit. So with that said, I think the August 8th meeting, mentioned that there's really kind of three methods of developing an accessory dwelling unit. One is to submit building plans for a completely detached structure, in essence, a new building. Secondarily, it's to build an attached structure, so adding space or square footage onto an existing home. And then last but not least, converting an existing structure like a detached garage or outbuilding or maybe former guest house to an accessory dwelling unit. The provisions that were included in the draft ordinance that we presented to you included some square footage limitations in terms of the allowable size of the accessory dwelling units, and it also restricted the number of ADUs per parcel to one ADU. Staff took council's direction. I think there's considerable deliberation about the number of accessory dwelling units that could be developed on a particular parcel. And what I think would like to give you an overview on tonight is what I think is kind of a creative opportunity to allow more than one ADU. So real quickly, just to summarize the changes, I think there was council's discussion on parking. There was no direction given specifically to staff to revise the parking requirements, because of the nuances in terms of where the current legislation restricts the requirement for additional parking, that it would be difficult to implement. Though I did want to just mention that because the council did provide direction to, as was mentioned by Councilmember Bagby earlier, to look at opportunities when we bring back a fee resolution for accessory dwelling units, to look at potential fee credits for accessory dwelling units. And we received that direction, we understand it, and I'm happy to report that this afternoon the city manager and the city attorney executed a contract with a consultant to provide a ADU nexus study, so we can bring that work back to council to kind of set an actual ADU fee, which isn't currently provided in our fee resolution. So moving on and highlighting the changes. Under the maximum unit size, just to recap, the draft ordinance that was presented provided kind of a two-tier structure for ADUs. On lots less than 6,000 square feet, it allowed ADUs up to 800 square feet in size, and lots that are larger, 6,000 square feet or larger, it allowed accessory dwelling units up to 1,200 square feet. So getting to where we kind of made a key change in the red line on the draft ordinance was to permit up to 2 accessory dwelling units, but sticking within that square footage limitation. So what staff's proposing in terms of the revisions to the ordinance was sticking within either the 800 square foot limitation or the 1,200 square foot limitation based on your lot size, that you could build up to 2 accessory dwelling units, and that could be any combination of those 3 options that we talked about before, which could mean a detached unit, a conversion of a former accessory structure, or some utilization of the existing space or an expansion of the existing space. So to kind of give you an example, if a property owner wanted to convert, let's say, a basement that they had to an accessory dwelling unit, and just for sake of discussion, that basement space was 600 square feet, the ordinance language as we've provided to you would also enable that property owner to submit and apply for a second ADU up to 600 square feet on their property, which would then provide the maximum of 2 ADUs, but within that 1,200 square feet. So there's various combinations that you could envision could work for a property owner. The intent was to kind of stay within the meaning of the legislation, which said, 80 accessory dwelling units could be up to 1,200 square feet. So what we were trying to do is craft a solution, I think, that took into some of the concerns and some of the issues relative to parking. We know that if you build a lot more units, that there's going to be a demand and need for parking. But there's also an associated water and sewer demand with additional square footage. So we're trying, and that comes at a cost to the city in terms of utilization of key capacity. Basically, what staff is proposing is just an update to that section of the zoning ordinance that identifies that you could build up to 2 ADUs, but you're limited to the maximum square footage based on your parcel size. So that was that was really what was the key change that staff made to bring that to you. We felt it was kind of a creative solution to addressing council's direction to allowing for more accessory units, and it would give property owners an opportunity to kind of really consider how to maximize that opportunity to provide additional living units within their existing space or existing parcel. The other kind of changes were really just kind of clean up to reflect the tense of the language within the zoning ordinance where it's referred to accessory dwelling unit or accessory dwelling units. And let's see if there was any other key components. I think that really reflects what I think council's direction was in terms of making that amendment. But I'm happy to cover in any more detail any of the other changes that we covered at the previous public hearing.
Thank you, David. Before I open it up to council members, I just have one question, kind of basic. What does 600 square feet look like? I mean, I know how to derive the square footage of a lot, but is that like, what would that be? 200, a lot that's 200 feet by 300 feet? What does a typical 600 square foot lot look like?
A 600 square foot like accessory dwelling unit?
No, the lot size.
6,000.
6,000.
I mean 6,000,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Typically, in a kind of a standard subdivision, a 6,000 square foot lot is going to be 100-foot depth and 60-foot wide.
And that would get you,
It's a pretty standard combination of 60 by 100.
Yeah.
Or some slight variation thereof.
so that would give them the 6,000 square foot.
Right.
So when we look at developments like Christofferson's, all the phases, Vintage Meadows, they could technically do a second dwelling unit?
They could.
Okay.
Yeah, anything really under 6,000 square feet would be subject to the initial tier of the 800 square foot accessory dwelling unit.
Right, okay.
And context that, you can play with different sizes, but if it was a completely detached unit, that might be a 40 by 20 as an example.
All right. Council members, any questions? Why don't we start with Carol?
Okay, no, I don't have a question per se. I think, thank you for working out some of the details there on the square footage. I saw it, and I thought it looked pretty good. I'm going to bring something up that you kind of blew off last time on me, and I'm going to bring it up again. Not because we have to consider it now, because we really can't, but we've got to look at it to make sure that we don't have a problem in the future and pay attention to what other people are doing. And that is the accessory dwelling units versus Airbnb usage. The more I talk to people, and I've been talking to plenty of them, and I've been looking at a lot of details, I'm getting the same message all the time from everyone. including Europe at this point, where there are serious problems with this. No one is immune from the fact that short-term rentals, particularly for vacations, particularly for tourists who are coming to a part of the world, wherever that part may be, where they need nice accommodations, and they really don't want to spend, $400, $500 a night in a hotel, or even $250 somewhere. They want to be part of the community. They like the idea. It's lovely. I don't complain about Airbnb. I know from the experience of folks who have used it and folks who are Airbnb renters that tourists who come and stay at an Airbnb stay about twice as long as anybody else, and they spend about twice the money. Not the least of the reasons is because they paid less for their accommodations, I suppose. But I'm also finding more and more and more that it's not confined to large cities. It's not confined to tourist hubs. It is developing everywhere, and in surprising numbers, people are converting spaces, particularly inside their homes, but they're also doing wonderful things with all kinds of units that they can buy relatively cheaply because the price of Airbnb is going up in certain areas. We know that we're all working on a lot of tourism in Sonoma County. In fact, I'm going to one more meeting tomorrow, I believe, on tourism, aren't we? And it's interesting, and I'm delighted that there's some intelligent work on it. But I also know that we're vulnerable, and maybe not now, but as Cloverdale does what Cloverdale is doing, which is going through a renaissance. People have noticed us in the last few years, and they're paying attention to us, and rightly so. And they're moving in, and businesses are moving in, and lots of good stuff is happening. At the same time, we become a very attractive place for folks who are going to spend a nice vacation here. Why not? I worry about that as time goes by because it affects property values and we can have all kinds of problems. And I just want to open it up again and not dismiss it because it is a global question and people are struggling with it. And it isn't that easy to cope with. So as we do this, and we are required in many ways to do some of these things by law, and there are other things I'm delighted that we're doing because we need that housing. And people also, we have many people in our area, as most areas do, who will benefit tremendously as homeowners from being able to use some of their property and use it wisely. And I trust them. I know them and I like them and I trust them. They will do their best to keep their community the way the community should be and not do anything to destroy it. Nevertheless, with all of the good intentions that people have had, there have been major, major problems. So as we go forward, I just want to make sure we educate ourselves on that and we pay attention to it because it is not easy to deal with, and it certainly isn't easy to patrol. But I would hate to see us, 5 years from now, look up and go, "Oy, why didn't we think of that?"
I agree with you. As a matter of fact, that was one of my questions was Airbnb, and this is my basic question was, we're not crafting this for Airbnb rentals. We're crafting it to fill a housing shortage that we have in the community. Paul?
Right. We are, the city attorney's office, David and myself are working on what we're calling an Airbnb ordinance right now. And based on the general input from the council, the direction we're going towards for Airbnb is they would be units with the host residing in the unit. So I think as we bring that Airbnb ordinance forward, we are going to have to address accessory dwelling units. In general, where we're looking at is if the homeowner or tenant, with the permission of the landowner, wants to host a room within their home, that's the direction we're going. So we don't have homes that are become vacation rentals and take workforce housing off the market. You do bring up an interesting point. How do we put that into an Airbnb, or how do accessory dwelling units fit into an Airbnb ordinance? And my initial response is right now is it would be the same approach as a primary residence, is that if you had an accessory dwelling unit, the host would have to reside in that unit. We do not want to go down the path of taking housing out of the marketplace for the workforce. So that, in general, that is where your staff is going with Airbnb.
And not to go on a side road with this and turn it into an Airbnb item here, but if we did decide to approve Airbnbs, I'm sure that along with the license and inspection of the house would have to be done too, and to be shown where the room is, and so we can eliminate the secondary units being used for Airbnbs, hopefully that way. And yeah, I just think it's a problem on the horizon that we need to address. So,
Well, if I might, Mr. Mayor, I just want to end this by saying, my part of it at any rate tonight, by saying I'm delighted to hear that some work is being done on it, because the impression I got last time was it costs too much to create an ADU, I believe. Why would anybody turn it into an Airbnb, which I thought was odd. So I'm glad that there is some attention on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council members, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the concern that Carol raised. I'm happy to hear that we're looking at an ordinance, but with that said, I also understand this is state law that we're addressing. It's not something we have a lot of discretion over. We have some latitude in it, but we don't. So we got to come to that balance, and I'm hopeful if there is an Airbnb ordinance, there's going to be proper safeguards requiring licensing, inspections,
TOT,
those types of things.
and tax.
Because it's a business, and a business needs a city business license, they need other permits. And so if they operate without those, then they're in violation of the code, and that have to be dealt with through code enforcement. And if they do apply for one, then they go through the process. So, but I think it's a really important issue that we got to monitor, but with that said, we have no control over this because state law is going to take.
Well, it's not a matter of not creating ADUs. It's a matter of worrying about turning them into
I'm just saying that state law is
Airbnbs.
requiring this, and we just have to move it, forward to crack.
But the state law doesn't require Airbnb. It does, but it doesn't require that we don't have some ability. And I'm not familiar with all of the things that are going on, but people have talked to me about ordinance against short-term rentals and things of that sort. And I'm not sure if that works or doesn't, but it's something to pursue at least
Okay.
as we move forward.
Melanie, would you like to weigh in on this?
Just quick on the heels, because we don't have a choice on this. It's incumbent upon us to then regulate the short-term rentals so that they don't, and that was one of the main concerns about this, when the governor signed it, is that, well, great, they're just going to turn into short-term rentals and not actually solve our housing problem or help solve. So I think that just timing is everything, so we're going to have to just need to make it a priority once this is in place.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I guess where I was going with, is everyone okay with the recommendations made by staff?
Oh, yeah, they're fine. They're
And
good.
I'm referring to the parking credits, and then also to the number of ADUs on a parcel. Okay.
I do not, well, I never like limits, but there is a issue kind of with me in that I would really kind of wish we would have treated it as on a case-by-case basis, in that, like, if somebody has an acre lot and they want to put 3 tiny homes in a row under the 1,200 feet, because they've got the space, why is that bad? The phone calls I get are mostly from young people who can't find anything to rent. Locally, they can't. And there's no 600, there's no 800. I had a phone call right before I came in here tonight of somebody who can't really afford more than $700 or $800 a month. Well, good luck, because you're not going to find it in this town anymore. So I don't know, I guess it was just a fantasy. I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be nice to see a little row of them? But
Little
then I
tiny
guess-
homes, yeah.
Well, I think the problem, well, not that it's a problem to some, but, when we pass ordinances like this, I think we have to be considerate of the neighbors who that might happen to.
Well, sure, but
I mean-
the lot would have to be very large to be able
Yeah.
to do that. But I never it's like one shoe does not fit all. It would be kind of nice to have kind of an opening.
So Mr. Mayor, if I,
Yes.
just a question for our community development director there. If you had an acre lot, they could come in and subdivide that lot to meet and go through a process to add more dwellings. I mean, there's a mechanism.
mechanism.
I don't see that many 1 acre lots in our city. It's much smaller. I think if somebody has that kind of land, they can actually make application and go through a process. I think that's being done up at the south end of town right now on a couple of units. So I think the vehicle's there to address those very few cases that might be out there to
What kind
accommodate
of?
those. Yeah. So, but I'm happy with this. I think that was a good compromise, so thank you.
Okay. Why don't we, I'm going to open up, continue the public hearing from the 18th. So it's open if anyone would like to step up to the podium and address us on this item. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm going to bring it back, and I guess this is for the first reading of that resolution that's on
Mr.
page
Mayor, I'd like to
86.
introduce the ordinance by title only for the first reading. Introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance number 714-2017 of the City Council, City amending Municipal Code Section 18.03.150, Design Review, Municipal Code Section 18.09.180, Second Residential Dwelling Units, Municipal Code Section 18.14.030, Definitions and all references of second residential dwelling units to accessory dwelling units throughout the Cloverdale Municipal Code.
Second.
May we have a roll call, Linda?
Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Paula?
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham?
Aye.
Councilmember Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Walter?
Aye. Okay, thank you, David, for your hard work on that. Raphael, thank you as well. Next item is, well, I guess we're right along here. We're going to do subcommittee reports. So Airport Subcommittee, that's Councilmember Russell.
I think I just folded our, let me borrow that from you if I could.
Yeah, sure, here.
I think it's October 3rd. I want to be sure I'm giving the right date. Yeah. The airport meets next on October 3rd, Mr. Mayor, at
Thank you.
8:30 a.m. in City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. The Finance Police Subcommittee, the meeting for Thursday was canceled, and we're going to continue that to September the 28th. Next is the Planning Community Development, and the chair on that is Mary Ann.
Next meeting, October 17th.
Public Works, Councilmember Bagby.
Next meeting is September 26th.
And lastly, the City Fire and City School Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the city's fire, our tentative date, and I don't believe that's been confirmed yet, but it's Monday, October 16th, and that would be at the Fire District Headquarters at 5 or 5:30. The time hasn't been confirmed.
It's, the last report that I got from Terry Matlock on this issue is we are still waiting to hear back from the fire district about when it would be convenient for their board members. So
So it's still tentative.
It's still tentative.
Yeah. And for the city school district, our next scheduled meeting is September 11th, 5 o'clock. It'll be at the City Hall Conference Room.
Okay, thank you. Council reports. Before we start, Paul, could you bring us up to date on our student liaison? I think you mentioned.
Student liaison, the subcommittee, the city school district subcommittee agreed that the liaison would begin the first meeting in September.
Okay.
That way we'll be able to alternate back and forth, and it will give the students, this is only their second week at school, so it gives them a chance to settle in before having to come into the council meetings, or the liaison come to the council meetings. And I think we're prepared. We're ready to contact the student for the first meeting in September, which will be the 12th.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, city council reports. Carol, do you want to start?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will give a complete report at the next meeting, but I just wanted to alert the council and also our city clerk that I will be asking that a copy of this, which is a close-to-home article written by myself and David Rabbit about the lawsuit against RCPA, circulate so that you all have a chance to take a look at it. And I won't go into gory detail, except to say we're working on the next steps, and our next meeting is in September. So I will get back to you at that point at this, but thank you very much.
Carol, I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, and don't forget, SMART starts Friday.
I'm drawing a blank. RCPA?
Yeah, Regional Climate Protection
Thank you.
Authority. Yeah,
Okay.
there was a lawsuit brought against us, which we lost, that had to do essentially with arguing for growth moratoriums and a detailed analysis of a, quote, life cycle, unquote, emissions for wine and tourism. And without going into detail, the moratorium is not only not legally enforceable, the technical tools to perform those analysis don't exist. I suggested at one point that as long as you were doing the total emissions, wouldn't you have to not only know how many greenhouse gas emissions, what percentage were from the winery to the distributor, but then wouldn't you have to know what the customers did? We all drive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in theory. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Fun reading.
Marianne, anything? Melanie?
Well, one thing I neglected to include in my, or two things I neglected to include in my report regarding the Cloverdale Arts Consortium meeting that I attended on the 14th. It is a group that was formed with the encouragement of 5 teachers from Cloverdale High School,
Yes.
where we're planning to present the students with an RFP to create an art wall project. And our first meeting, our RFP presentation is to them here on Monday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if any of you would like to attend and watch the Dog and Pony Show, it should be interesting. But yes, the group includes Mark Farrington from Friday Night Live and Catherine Hecht from Alexander Valley Film and a couple of other citizens, and they've asked me to be part of the consortium. We're going to be walking the kids through, well, first the thing we'll have to do is explain to them what an RFP is, because they probably don't know what it is. In fact, I had to explain it to everybody around the table, because they weren't really familiar with it. Even Mark Farrington, surprisingly, wasn't familiar with the concept, and then each of us are going to explain why we wanted to get involved and why we're asking them to do this art project. And the question that we're asking them to answer is, how do we know what is true?
Yeah,
And it
that's
will be
cool.
up to them to create a project and a piece of art around that question. So again, that the RFP meeting is Monday, 11 a.m. here at Performing Arts. And secondly, I also attended the League of Cities Redwood Division meeting in Fortuna, and I was elected the second vice president. I was the only candidate, so it was not very competitive, but I should let you know that
Good for you.
Cloverdale will be represented on that board.
Way to go.
Melanie,
Hey, grab opportunity when it comes up.
That's right.
I hate to say it, but
for
there's
you.
certain things you don't need to report out on, the part that you were the only
Yeah.
applicant.
Yeah, that's right.
The rest of it was really good. You did a good job of laying it out up until that point.
I thought I should just be upfront about that.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, and on that note,
And
thank
that
you.
concludes my report.
And on that note, thank you for going.
Sure.
So,
Thank you for driving to Fortuna, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report is going to be in the minutes. Didn't make it into the packet this time, but I also attended the Redwood Empire Division meeting, and it was a good meeting, and I wanted to just report out that our very own Melanie Bagby was elected to the second VP position, so she'll be a part of the executive board, which I also serve on as the division director, as well as the chair of the legislative committee. So
It
it's
is
a
better
good.
when you say it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. But I do want to just say one thing real quickly. The presentation was on drones and, or unmanned aircraft, I guess is the proper.
Drones.
acronym, drones. And it's very interesting, but how they're being used. And they had a presentation, the Fortuna city manager, Mark Wheatley, gave a little presentation on how they're promoting and marketing their city. And they had beautiful shots from up above, and they're zooming in. And it started to kind of get the thoughts going throughout our group about all the things that we can do to help promote our own cities. But then you get into the other issue on the liability, what happens if one falls out of the sky and hurts somebody, because I know we're all part of the Remuth group, and it was made very clear that they are not covered under Remuth, so if somebody gets hurt. So that's a different conversation that we'll need to have at the Remuth board, but with that said, I think, I know some of the police departments, and not ours, I know is not using them, but they use them more so for different suspicious activity going on around schools where they get a call of something and they can actually, without, they can cover a big, broad area. And they showed examples of this. It was very, very impressive. And they emphasized the fact that you need to have a policy and or an ordinance or regulation, something in place, though there's none in place currently. Through Lexipol, I know I just got a copy of a draft one that they have on unmanned aircrafts. So I was going to take a look at that, and I was going to get it up to the league to see if they might be in a position to do a model one that people can at least refer to. So, but it was a good presentation, something to think about. And, but there's a couple of things that we would need to do if we're going to move it as a city to start using those. That ends my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Nick Pavelka had his drone up the first couple Friday Night Lives, and he had them posted on Facebook. And I'll tell you, it just gave a whole different perspective on what Friday Night Live looked like and how crowded it really is. So, yeah. Okay, so legislative reports?
None tonight.
Okay. City manager reports?
Just a couple quick comments. I misspoke. One of our student liaisons is in the audience tonight. He gets extra credit.
Oh.
And thank you for coming. And we'll be in touch. And next month you'll be officially up here on the DS. But that's terrific that you're here tonight and at the council meeting and involved. I think, like I said, I think we should make sure that the school district recognizes a very good effort and extra credit.
Yeah. Everett, thank you for coming. Not to put you on the spot, if you wanted to say a few words or just come on up to the podium and share with us. And
Sorry, I missed the public's section.
Oh, that's okay.
I apologize for that. For the record, hi, my name is Everett Conway. I am a senior at Cloverdale High School. I have been very interested in politics, mainly since I was a kid, and my mom said, "Why do you argue so much? You should be a lawyer." So, and then eventually it evolved from there into being a politician, and this has always just been a very fascinating process for me. My friend is actually the other student liaison. Her name is Samantha Santana, sorry, we all call her Sammy. And she is also very excited to be a liaison to the city council. We're very honored to have this experience. It's super important, and we understand all of the complexities. We don't yet understand all of the complexities of government, but we're very excited to learn what those are through experience. Just something that I wanted to mention is that I had an opportunity this summer to go to Boys State, which is a governmental kind of program that they put on where the students are able to set up and conduct their own government. There's a judicial branch, a legislative, executive. Of course, it's not very refined because the kids are running it. But basically, the deal was that I was not able to attend because I had a dance recital that conflicted with that. And Sammy was the runner-up for Girls State, which is the same program for the other gender. So we were very excited to learn that although we couldn't make that we were able to get this, and that was just a really awesome coincidence for both of us. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And one of the things we're hoping too, Everett, both from you and Sammy, is to join in the conversation on some topics. You'll hopefully get the agenda packet through the email link, and if you see something that you'd like to weigh in on, we'd love to hear. So.
Absolutely.
Good.
That'd be awesome.
Both received letters laying out the expectations about the process. And also, I sent you an email today. Did you get it?
I did not. I don't check my email that often.
Okay.
So,
Well, check it and let me know that I have the correct email address
All right.
for you, please.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Paul, did you have another item?
Just to remind the council is Labor Day is coming up, and City Hall will be closed on Monday. I think it's Monday, September 3rd.
And did you want to say something about the trees that are being cut down tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow, unfortunately, the redwood trees in the south entrance median did not recover. And one of them is really in very poor condition. The second one is not in very good condition either. Your lighting and landscape team, especially Hector and Tony, tried to give it more water, did as much as they could, but those trees just aren't going to make it. So tomorrow morning, that section of the boulevard will be closed. Mark, do you know approximately what time they're going to close?
Shutting it at 8:30 a.m.
8:30, so after kids go to school, and then those trees will be coming down. We have ordered new trees from Cloverdale Nursery, and Hector and the crew are working very closely with Ashley at Cloverdale Nursery. They will be replaced right now with Chinese pistachio trees. So, the redwood trees, even though they're beautiful, and it's unfortunately that they've gotten sick, they probably weren't the best choice for a street median. That's not the reason that we're replacing them. One of the trees is very sick, and the other one you can see signs of stress, and they're just not going to make it. So it really is a safety issue. I also know get questions about the Healdsburg median, and as soon as the weather cools off, there is a complete plan to do the landscaping. I think the decorative rock has been acquired. The backflow device has been installed. There will be some soil brought in to do some leveling there. But I met with Hector the other day, and it's on their list, and that median will be landscaped here very soon. And trees will be replaced in the median at the south downtown entrance.
And how about that monument sign on that south entrance?
Mark, I know we have a purchase order with the mason. The sign is at the the corporation yard. Fletcher Fabrication was making new letters.
That's right. It's the lettering is taking a little bit more time than we anticipated.
Yeah. So we're working with local vendors to make sure the sign gets replaced. And the idea is that the work would happen at the corporation yard, and then when the sign is completed and repaired, then it will be set back in position.
Okay, good, thank you. Council members, anything else?
Yeah, just one. Can we get a quick update on up at the south end of town, all that construction that's going on by renters? It's closed off. It's been closed off for quite a long time. A lot of the asphalt, is that moving along as scheduled, or has there been some delays on that project?
I haven't driven by the project. I did notice after I got back from vacation that they are up to grade. Curb and gutter are set. It looks like most of the structural backfill is done. I think all the drainage work and sewer work is done. Mark, do you know exactly where they stand as of today?
They're continuing to work. They haven't stopped work. It's just that it is going a little bit longer than they had anticipated. They had a complication with drainage and not meeting grade, so they had to bridge a shallow pipe, and so that probably slowed them down about a week or two.
Okay, thank you.
But it is encouraging that curb, gutter, and sidewalk is done, so that grade is set. So now it's a matter of them just coming up. I mean, from that point.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney reports?
Yes, Mayor. Just a quick just heads up to the council on things we're working on. Paul did mention the Airbnb ordinance. Also, following up on our the Shift Sonoma County project presentation at the next council meeting, we have been working with staff to comply with AB 1236, which requires an ordinance establishing a streamlined permit process for electric vehicle charging stations. So you'll see that at the next council meeting as well. We're also working on the smoking ordinance. Work closely with Paul, the city manager, on that, and working on an ordinance for PEG fees, which are fees to support public educational and government channel facilities. So working on that as well. So you'll be seeing a rollout of several ordinances in the next few months.
Okay. And again, it's not an agenda item, but along that PEG funding, we have our city council meetings now on YouTube. Are we going to see about running those on Access Healdsburg?
We can. I can tell you, I was just speaking to the videographer, Alan Fitch, and we're fairly pleased with the number of views that we've seen on on YouTube.
YouTube is the way to go.
It's not, we're not going viral by any means, but people are watching them.
Yeah, they are.
And it is getting viewed on YouTube. The one other thing, Mr. Mayor, if I could take a second to report out on, we had a visitor in City Hall today. Chief Kramer came into City Hall today.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, it's remarkable. I think we were all very pleased on how well he looked physically. You can tell that he's got a great spirit. He is going to have another procedure done in about 14 days, where they're going to implant a bionic larynx in his throat. And he has said to me today he's going to be back at the end of October. Wow. So, and I believe it. He really looks very good. The surgery, the recovery from the surgery is remarkable, considering that he was in surgery for over 18 hours. But he is continuing on his other therapies, and I think everybody that met with him today was just, we were inspired by his spirit.
Wonderful.
Great.
Oh, that's good news. Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Council members, is there anything else for the good of the order? Okay, then staff, as always, thank you. You're kind of solo over there tonight, but we'll get you some more company next meeting. Linda, thank you, and we're going to go ahead and adjourn. The next city council meeting is Tuesday, September the 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.